The story begins in a classroom full of excited students. A classmate, excited about the upcoming event, wakes up the protagonist, hoping that he will help him. Their deskmate jokes that appearance alone won't be enough for the test, hinting not to count on help. Suddenly, the lively conversations of classmates are interrupted by the teacher entering the classroom, causing everyone to sit down. Our main character is named Jake, who is a time traveler who moves between worlds. The world he finds himself in now is different from the past, in that there is a secret world inside it, which has been drawing people from the real world into itself. The secret world was full of beings with their own consciousness, which are called mysteries. Each secret is assigned a rank, and the higher the rank, the more dangerous the secret is considered. One day, one of the visitors to the secret world made a contract there and brought the Stone of Cunning into the real world in order to avoid accidentally dragging people into it in the future. The teacher encourages his students, reminding them that they must come out when they have no more resurrections left. After the countdown, she presses the button on the container containing the Stone of Cunning, teleporting all the students in the classroom. After entering the secret world, Jake's character information panel opens, where he notices that his strength is 50 instead of the required 10. Grinning, the protagonist suggests that this is a power bonus for the handsome guys. In the distance, the guy saw the hospital he needed to get to continue the test. But to his misfortune, at the very beginning of his journey, he stumbles upon a secret. This secret was a woman with a slit mouth who kept asking if she was beautiful. Jake tried to calm down and remember what they had taught him about this secret in class and how to deal with it, but he had forgotten everything they had learned at school. He couldn't think of anything better to do than to play dumb and just run away. But the woman with the slit mouth did not give up and continued asking him if she was beautiful. Driving Jake into a dead end, she repeated her question over and over again, after which she attacked him with her weapon. Suddenly, her attack is blocked by a system prompt, which hints to the protagonist on how to defeat this mystery. Relishing this opportunity, the guy begins to provoke the woman, but, to his misfortune, the system window disappears, leaving him practically defenseless. The stranger's excessive self-confidence and confidence infuriated the mystery, causing her to rush towards him in order to finish him off. Suddenly, Jake picked her up, which immediately discouraged the woman. Recalling the hint that said that this woman only needed a little love and care, he said that true love only comes once. Not understanding what he is trying to achieve, the mystery interrupts him. Realizing that she doesn't believe his words, the protagonist kisses the woman. The mystery was discouraged and greatly embarrassed by such actions. Jake, in turn, was excited by the sweet taste of her lips. Jumping out of the guy's arms, she said her name was Catherine and promised that he wouldn't get away with it so easily, after which she ran away. After this, a system panel appeared in front of the main character, which congratulated him on completing the secret mission and presented him with a reward. The reward was Catherine's scissors, which the guy wanted to sell for a large sum of points, but could not do so, since they were tied to him. Full of confidence from the protagonist aura, Jake headed towards the hospital. Almost immediately upon arrival at the hospital, he is met by the head nurse. She gives him an assignment for the night, mentioning that one of the patients needs special care, after which she tells him to come to the same place in the morning to collect his salary. Jake asks the head nurse if anyone else has arrived, but she coldly replies that he will find out while he is on duty. On the way to the necessary chambers, the hero studies the notebook with assignments, glad that instead of the entire floor, he will only have to look after 4 chambers. Upon arrival, he finds a huge amount of blood on the door and walls, which makes him nervous. Before entering, the guy studies the system prompt, which said that he must not lose face in front of his patients, and that a human head will fly at him upon entering. Summoning his weapon, he bursts into the room and plunges the scissors into the head flying at him. Looking back, he sees before him the discouraged mysteries who will be his patients. As it turned out, they wanted to play a joke on their nurse, but his scissors alerted them. Jake introduced himself and asked the patient who needed special care to stand up. When it turned out that the patient was a headless girl, he apologized and decided to take the scissors out of her head. Suddenly, a clue appeared that hinted that this secret would kill him as soon as the scissors were removed. Then Jake decided to chop her head into pieces, which greatly frightened the other secrets located in the room. A new clue told him that they would not contradict him now. The protagonist offered to put the girl's head back in place, but she, overcome with fear, refused, and began to collect the pieces of her head herself. Suddenly, an announcement comes from the speakers that a nurse is needed in the next room. As soon as Jake approached the room, a system prompt appeared in front of him. However, there was nothing written on it. The protagonist cautiously enters the ward, asking who called the nurse. The mystery, with a badly distorted face, rushes at him with a furious cry. Frightened, the guy asks what happened to them, while the mystery points its finger into the depths of the ward. Another patient in the same room explains that she is asking the hero to calm a crying baby who was lying in the same room. Jake wonders why they couldn't solve this problem themselves, but is reminded that he is at the hospital for that. When a nurse picks up a baby, a prompt appears next to the baby stating that if patients eat off-duty medical staff, the head nurse will not do anything to them. The boy calms the baby down and wants to tell him a story, but he says that if he doesn't like the story, he will eat him. Jake is acting quite calm, which puzzles the baby. The hero, despite the threats, begins to tell the story, but the baby does not like it, which is why he threatens to kill the hero. Jake immediately summons his weapon and rams it into the baby's mouth, reminding him that it is impolite to interrupt people. By the end of the day, a crowd of students had gathered in the hall, each one talking with horror about their patients, doubting that they would last until the end of the trial. When our hero reached the hall, the head nurse came out to the students. One of the students approached the nurse to praise her work, but when he approached her, she cut off his head with one blow. As it turned out, this student did a poor job and received many complaints from patients. Afterwards, the head nurse handed out envelopes with money to all the students, and reminded them that there were vending machines on each floor where they could buy food and drinks. After ordering everyone to go to sleep in the waiting areas on their floors, she also indicated that everyone should sleep at night and no one should open their eyes, no matter what happened. Jake spent part of his salary on food and water, which is an expensive luxury here. He also notices a rather expensive flashlight in a vending machine, but at first he doesn't pay much attention to it and decides to go to bed so that he can have time to rest before the next morning's gatherings. In a dream, Jake sees the heavenly prison, which has appeared to him many times in his dreams. Having failed to get inside the prison, the hero decides to continue sleeping. At night, a secret creeps into his mind, which he does not notice due to his extremely deep sleep. In the morning, when the boy goes down to the hall, his classmate Lilith approaches him and asks him to lend her money for food. She noticed that among all the classmates who were kept awake by secrets, Jake seemed the most cheerful and thought he had found a solution to the problem. Lilith continued to beg the hero, but at that moment the head nurse entered the hall. After reporting that 5 students had died overnight, she gave new instructions to the remaining students. This time, Jake had to deliver medication to a patient in a ward he had never been to before, so he decided to ask other patients about the new secret. It turned out that no one had seen this patient in person, but they said that he often ate his medical staff. As he approached the ward, a system window opened in front of the guy, once again helping him deal with the mysterious patient. The patient turned out to be a vampire, to whom Jake brought a cocktail made according to the recipe in the clue, made of expensive coffee, jasmine, and glass chips. The patient really liked the cocktail made by the nurse and drank it in one gulp, which frightened the hero. In gratitude, the vampire gave the guy money so that in the future he could bring her more of her favorite drink. Taking the money, Jake began buying food from the vending machine, noticing the expensive flashlight again. This flashlight was clearly there for a reason, especially for such a large sum, so the hero bought it, thereby unlocking a special task. The guy's thoughts about this task are interrupted by Lilith, running towards him and begging him for help. However, Jake, without thinking, hits the girl in the face, causing her to fall to the floor. The protagonist says that his classmate's chest should have a birthmark that the girl doesn't have, and he advises her to be more professional in the future. At this moment, the secret tears off its disguise, showing the guy its true nature. Tina realizes that her opponent is not so stupid and says that she will allow him to become her prey. But at that moment, Jake plunges the scissors into her throat. The disconcerted mystery accuses the hero of cheating, to which he replies that all villains are usually destroyed by excessive talkativeness. In the evening, the head nurse praises our guy for his work and gives him pay for the day. His classmates are shocked that he achieved such success in his work without even preparing for the test, and wonder how he did it. The classmates' conversations are interrupted by class president Harry, who comes out to address the crowd. He says that they have already lost most of their friends, and if they do not unite, their chances of success will be very low. The president shows off the sword he acquired during his work and unites his classmates under his leadership. Jake realizes that Harry is doing all this just to take money from the others in the future, so he refuses to cooperate. Sitting in his room, the hero examines the flashlight and becomes better acquainted with the special task. The quest, the sad cry of the bloody night, makes the guy think that he will have to leave his room at night one way or another. He reflects on the importance of passing this test and is also concerned about a special assignment, because upon completion of them, his chances of entering a prestigious university will greatly increase. Noting that everyone in the secret world pursues their own interests, he refuses to cooperate with Harry, because in his opinion he has never been a good person. At night, Jake gets out of bed to begin a special mission, and finds that the hospital looks completely different than it did in the daylight. As it turns out, the flashlight needed for this task only works for 3 hours from the moment it is turned on. Suddenly, the hero hears a noise coming from outside the door of his room and decides to check what is there. Looking through the peephole of the door, he sees an eye looking straight at him. A classmate's voice is heard behind the door, asking the guy to save him from the impending danger. But Jake decides not to open the door, as he does not know for sure who is behind it. Many secrets awaited him behind that door, and each of them wanted to tear him apart. When the noise died down and the protagonist thought that the danger had passed, he was attacked by a mystery that had crept into his room. Reacting quickly, Jake points the flashlight beam at the mystery, instantly incinerating it with magical light. Outside the window, he hears a woman's scream and a prompt appears in front of him, showing the progress of a special task. The guy immediately realized that in order to progress this task, he needed to find the screaming woman. But instead of putting the remaining space in the flashlight to good use, he decides to simply sleep until the next morning. In the morning, the hero meets the vampire again and, pointing to the woman's scream, asks her if she knows what happened. The patient is overcome with horror and insistently asks Jake to ignore the matter, otherwise the head nurse will kill them all. Realizing that this case is connected with the head nurse, the guy decides to finish the tasks for today in order to later go looking for clues. Suddenly, his classmate Bart approaches the hero and asks him to help him deal with a very curious situation. Bart told Jake that his classmate was killed in the bathroom by a mysterious mystery that asked him to choose one of 3 cards. Having trusted his friend, the protagonist promised to solve this problem and went to wait for the secret in the restroom. When Jake saw a hand holding 3 colored cards under the stall door, he kicked the door down, sending the stunned mystery man to the floor. The boy grabbed his scissors and began to demand that the patient bring their classmate back to life, since, according to him, cremation is expensive these days. The tormented mystery asks the hero to let her go, offering money in exchange. While taking the money, Jake remembers that for today's task he needs to find the patient from room 404, about whom he asks the victim. The mystery says that this patient is sitting in the women's restroom across the street. Following a system prompt, the hero invites a patient from room 404 to drink strong alcohol. Watching the old man mix Mao Tai with antibiotics, Jake asks him about the women's screams heard from the street at night. This patient also warns the guy that getting involved in this matter is quite dangerous, because the head nurse can finish him off. However, if he is interested in any leads, he can go up to the roof of the hospital. Having reached the roof, the guy notices that he can't see the road he came from or any other buildings, only the red sky. Suddenly, he notices a cheap phone on the roof, picking it up, which increases the progress of the special task to 50%. Just as he was overjoyed at having found the key item for this quest, he sensed an ominous aura behind him. It was the head nurse who first asked the hero what he was doing there. Jake says he's already found the patient from room 404, but his room smelled so bad that he had to go up to the roof to get some fresh air. To the hero's surprise, when he was already thinking of defending himself from the head nurse with his scissors, she believed him and ordered him to get off the roof. Meanwhile, Harry used his sword to steal the rest of the students' money, and when he saw that Jake only got 50 coins this time, he was glad he hadn't cooperated with him. Arriving in his room, the protagonist unsuccessfully tries to turn on the phone he found. Remembering the metaphorical system prompt, Jake decides to wait until evening to continue the special task. In the evening, the phone finally worked, and now the guy could watch the mysterious video. By clicking on it, the main character saw himself looking straight through the phone screen. When the guy in the video cut his cheek, the cut immediately appeared on Jake's face, and he realized that the video was synchronized with him. To avoid death at the hands of the secret, the hero decides to shine the flashlight directly at the phone screen, which ultimately saves him and allows him to view the original video. In it, he sees an unknown man attempting to rape the head nurse. After watching the video, the progress of the task has not changed in any way, so Jake decides to watch it again in search of clues. In one of the fragments, he still notices the number of the room in which everything took place, and the progress immediately increases to 60%. When the hero reaches the desired floor, he hears the sound of heels and decides to hide to scout out the situation. At first, he thought it was the head nurse, but then he saw that it was just a regular mystery girl walking around the floor with a knife in her hand. Just when Jake was glad he hadn't been noticed, secrets surrounded him from behind. Greatly frightened, the hero screams and shines a lantern in his face to drive away the evil spirits. Because of his scream, the mystery detects him and attacks the guy with a knife. Trying to defend himself, Jake points the flashlight at the nurse, but its light is harmless to her. The hero remembers that ordinary secrets were afraid to cry, so he decides to run to the roof, from where women's screams were heard at night. His guess turns out to be correct, and after he manages to escape the nurse, he continues to search for clues on the roof. On the roof, he meets a little girl named Sophia. While studying the clues, Jake calms the crying girl and says that he came to play with her. To lift Sophia's spirits, they go to the vending machine together to buy some sweets. Then the guy asks the now cheerful girl if she will join him, to which she agrees. Together, they arrive at the room where the events from the video on the found phone took place. In the ward, Jake sees a horrifying scene of a nurse with a knife mocking a male nurse chained to a cross. The nurse keeps apologizing to the nurse and begging her to spare him, while she plunges a knife into his throat. The main character felt sick at the sight of such a terrible picture, and he quickly covered Sophia's eyes with his hand so that she wouldn't see what was happening in the room. The nurse, noticing Jake behind the half-open door, began to beg him for help. But at that moment, the secret, with a quick swing of a knife, cut off his tongue. When the protagonist thought that the crucified nurse was dead, this horrific scene began to repeat itself over and over again. At this point, Sophia felt unwell and asked the guy to leave, to which Jake agreed on the condition that she would not open her eyes. Jake and Sophia returned to the roof again, and when she opened her eyes again, the hero, to please her, handed her a huge lollipop. Sophia asks the guy if he will come and play with her again, to which he answers affirmatively and leaves the roof. As he walks up the stairs, Jake thinks again about the prizes, the prestigious university, his family, and firmly decides that he must pass this difficult test. Suddenly, he meets Harry on his way, holding the same flashlight and probably performing the same task. The class president tells him not to stand in his way, to which the hero indifferently replies that he doesn't care about Harry's death, but advises him not to go to the 14th floor. A puzzled Harry asks why he should die if the hero got out of there alive, and promises that he will be the one to collect the reward for the special task, after which they part ways. The next morning, the students were heatedly discussing the new assignment, which was to give patients a forced injection. Such tasks were very difficult for their class, so many did not want to take them on, and besides, 13 people in the class had already died. Each of the deceased had their own spirit, but only their classmate Eva was able to survive by signing a contract in the secret world. The students, unprepared for the suffering, despite the presence of resurrections, no longer wish to participate in this test and are preparing to leave the secret world. Harry comes out into the hall and asks the rest if they have resurrection points, to which an awkward silence ensues. It turned out that Harry, Lilith, and Bart had already lost their resurrection points. Jake says that they have no reason to stay now, because if they die in the secret world, then they will die in the real world too. But the classmates, full of confidence in their abilities, are not going to give up and intend to persistently go to the end. Having bribed the old man with alcohol again, the protagonist completes his task without any particular difficulty. As Jake leaves the room and wonders how the others handled the task, he bumps into Harry standing in the hallway. The boy became curious about why the class president had come to him, and, assuming that he would ask for help in completing the assignment, he immediately refused. Unexpectedly for the protagonist, Harry begins to apologize for his behavior, explaining that he has no choice. Jake stops him, reminding him that he didn't give the president his money, so he has nothing to apologize for. After apologizing again, Harry explained that he had been taken to Ward 1401 on the advice of a patient, who had also advised him to visit the head nurse's room, but that he was now unable to do so. Having heard another possible clue, the main character finally agreed to help his classmate. Jake told his patients about the secret that was known to the head nurse, and they all gathered together to teach him a lesson themselves. In exchange for help, Harry told our hero that the head nurse was resting on the 4th floor, which was reached by only one elevator in the entire hospital. In the elevator, Jake meets another patient who asks him if he is going to the morgue, to which he answers yes. The patient considers the guy abnormal, because even she, being a secret, is afraid of the ghosts there. She tells the protagonist that this hospital has existed for hundreds of years, and unidentified bodies are brought into the morgue, which periodically emerge to take a walk. Tina wanted to scare Jake by showing him the bracelet that the head nurse usually puts on the wrist of walking corpses, but the guy stealthily steals it. Arriving at the sub-zero floor, the patient became nervous and tried to close the elevator doors faster. Wondering what the mystery was so afraid of, the protagonist saw a dead man rushing straight towards their elevator. Jake stopped the elevator doors, explaining that the dead man just wanted a ride. In the elevator, a guy asks a dead man if he washes his head, which is pierced to the brain, which confuses both the dead man and the mystery traveling with them. On the next floor, Jake helps another mystery in a wheelchair, after which he also asks an tactless question about how she washes herself. One floor below, our altruist helps an old woman, for which she initially thanks him warmly, but then becomes embarrassed when she sees 3 more different spirits in the elevator. Tired of the protagonist's constant chatter, the first patient loses her temper and intends to eat him. Here, a dispute arises between the secrets, since everyone had to endure it in order to eat it in the future. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Jake exits the elevator in search of the head nurse's room. Upon arrival at the morgue, the boy examines the room, recognizing some of the corpses as his classmates. Walking past the table, the protagonist notices a diary and a small stack of old photographs. After reading the diary to the end, he learns the dramatic story of a nurse who suffered at the hands of her beloved teacher, which none of her colleagues believed. so the nurse vowed to kill everyone who did not believe her. After reading the diary, the quest progress increases to 99%, which irritates the protagonist, who wanted to finish the test as quickly as possible. Suddenly, a system warning appears in front of all the students about the activation of nightmare mode, which undoubtedly frightens everyone. Everyone except Jake, who is excited about the opportunity to earn more rewards for completing an event that happens once every 100 years. Distracted by his thoughts, the boy doesn't notice how the head nurse enters the morgue. When she asked what the guy was doing in the morgue, he decided not to waste time explaining and just ran away. To his surprise, the head nurse did not pursue him, allowing him to disappear into the depths of the hospital. After taking the elevator to the first floor, Jake meets Lilith, Harry, and Bart waiting for him by the elevator. Surprised by such a reception, the protagonist asks what they are doing in the hall. Lilith says they saw on the monitors that Jake went to the morgue and asks if he's okay. The guy says that he met the head nurse in the morgue and, reminding her that the nightmare mode is very dangerous for newcomers, suggested that those who have no resurrections left return to the real world. Jake's classmates looked at him with concern. Not everyone liked his proposal. Doubting, Harry reminds him that the reward for completing the mode will be even greater, to which Bart replies that he is crazy and agrees with the protagonist that remaining in the secret world without resurrection is suicide. But the class president is already well aware of the riskiness of his decision, and promises to reimburse his classmates for the money he took from them earlier upon his return. Even though he admires Harry's fighting spirit, Bart does not want to remain in the secret world, saying that he values his life. After saying goodbye and wishing good luck to his classmates, Bart returns to the real world. Surprised by his classmates' decision to stay, Jake tries to convince them otherwise, citing the proverb that life is given only once, and if they lose it now, there will be no second chance. Ignoring the protagonist's lectures, his classmates try to persuade him to help them pass the test. The guy reluctantly agrees, saying that he won't be guilty if they are suddenly killed. Meanwhile, in the morgue, the head nurse rejoices at the arrival of the nightmarish regime that she had been waiting for so long. It's getting close to midnight, and soon, exactly at midnight, the killer will go hunting. In preparation for the start, the classmates decided to stick together and lock themselves in one of the rooms. Hoping to boost his friend's morale, Harry says that together they have a better chance of survival. However, his words are interrupted by a loud knock on the door of the room. It was the head nurse who demanded that they open the door for her. She said that sleeping together was prohibited and everyone should stay in their rooms, but none of the students dared even approach the door. The head nurse knew her victims were inside, and when she received no answer, she became enraged. With a powerful blow from her inhuman hands, she smashes the closed door of the chamber into small pieces. Meeting the students' eyes, holding a bloody knife in her hand, she begins to move closer and closer towards them. Harry, grabbing his sword, heroically stands between the head nurse and his classmates, shouting that they must leave. Lilith, overcome with horror, does not want to leave the class president to be torn apart by the secret. Harry at this time shouts that there is no time to think, and demands to be left alone before he changes his mind. Jake called out to Lilith to follow him, but she froze in horror and did not want to leave her classmate. When she just decided to run, the head nurse cut off her legs with her knife. Harry, unable to contain his fear, rushed to run away from this room, leaving only a horrified look at his classmate. Shocked by fear, pain, and bewilderment, Lilith continued to call out to the figure of the class president, who was moving away down the corridor. Sensing something was wrong and seeing Harry running past, Jake turned to his classmate. After all the inspiring speeches and promises, she couldn't believe that Harry would just run away, leaving her to her fate. Jake screams at Lilith with all his might to return to the real world. Just as she opened the system window and thought she could save herself, the head nurse pierced her helpless body with her knife, stabbing her again and again. Realizing that he can't help her now, Jake runs away. Having finished with her victim, the nurse raises her terrifying gaze after the fleeing boys. After running through many floors in search of salvation, Jake and Harry stop to catch their breath. Feeling guilty for what he did, Harry begins to justify himself to the protagonist, saying that he would have done the same. Overcome with emotion, the president explains that his father is terminally ill, his own mother abandoned him, and his beloved grandfather, unable to bear such grief, died. Harry yells at the protagonist that he cannot sit back and watch the people closest to him die before his eyes, so he must do everything to save his father. After catching his breath, Jake says that Harry needs to stop pretending that he has the hardest life and that he doesn't have to justify himself to him. The protagonist asks the president if he knows that Lilith was going to invite them to dinner if they all survive. She told Jake about Harry's family and hoped to pass this test to help his family. Overtaking the president, Jake agrees that people make choices only to please themselves and then face the results of their choices. Having gone up the stairs to the very end, the hero opens the door leading to the roof, where he meets Sophia again. Overjoyed, she hugs Jake, asking if he has come to play with her. The hero apologizes, saying that they won't play this time, but he wants to tell Sophia something. The loud clatter of heels interrupted their conversation and, turning around, Harry was horrified again. The head nurse caught up with them again, but this time they had nowhere to run. Jake sensed the strong aura emanating from the mystery and covered Sophia with his arms, protecting her from the impending danger. The hero understands that they are not able to overcome such a powerful secret, and since they can no longer hide, he asks the head nurse for a favor. Before he attacks, Jake asks her to listen to one story. Recalling the diary found in the morgue, he talks about a small but very smart girl who once wanted to become a nurse in order to help people. Over time, she was able to achieve her goal, and through hard work and her care, she earned the trust of many patients. But one day, she encountered something truly terrible. She saw her mentor sexually assaulting one of his patients. Completely forgetting why she came, the nurse rushed at her mentor, trying to save the poor patient. But her efforts were unsuccessful, and she also became a victim of her mentor. In order to hush up this story, the mentor decided to promote the heroine to head nurse, which caused rumors to spread throughout the hospital that she had voluntarily decided to get a new position through sex. But when she tried to convey to people the opposite, no one believed her. Summarizing his story, Jake says that the heroine of this story was the head nurse, Sophia. The hero sympathizes with the head nurse, saying that what was worse than the colleagues who insulted her was the loss of trust among the hospital patients. Driven mad by the memories, the head nurse began screaming that everyone who died by her hand deserved it, and that's why she chopped them all into pieces. Jake agrees that all of these people deserve their punishment, which leaves the stunned nurse in a stupor. He says that deep down in her soul, the nurse still retains some of the kindness she once gave to patients. And Sophia is a confirmation of his words, as a part of her personality that the nurse deliberately separated from herself and locked away in the crush. Jake says that at first he thought that Sophia was the head nurse's daughter, but then he realized that it was not without reason that the other secrets were afraid of such a small and fragile girl. Trying to reach out to the nurse, the protagonist asks her if she really wants to stay with this curse forever. The head nurse says that it doesn't matter now because she solved this problem without anyone's help, and that she doesn't need other people's compassion. When the nurse decides to finish off the students, Jake says they can't defeat her anyway, so he takes Sophia hostage, since he and the nurse are connected and she mustn't be harmed. Suddenly, Harry strikes Sophia with his sword, causing her to fall to the floor and start crying. Harry is confident that by killing the girl, he will get rid of the head nurse and thus pass the test, receiving the long-awaited prize. Suddenly, the president's head falls to the ground and, not understanding why the nurse is still alive, Harry dies. Tired of everything that is happening around her and laughing at the stupidity of her victims, the nurse decides to put an end to them once and for all. The nurse's path is immediately blocked by Sophia, begging her to stop. She says that all those who hurt the nurse were indeed cursed, but it's all over now. In response to the nurse's cries that those people haven't paid enough for their sins, Sophia clarifies that she's not talking about the doctors and patients, but about her and the nurse. Sophia says she understands how unhappy the head nurse is, because she feels the same way. The girl embraces the silent secret, saying that she does not want to see it suffer. Sophia asks the nurse that this time they should have a good rest from all the troubles, and then slowly disappears. It finally dawns on the head nurse that she hasn't been truly happy all this time. Exhausted by what's happening, Jake sits down at the edge of the roof to finally take a rest. He understands that only man himself can grant himself a sense of redemption. Watching as the red sky turns blue, and the once bloodthirsty secret crumbles in the wind with tears in his eyes. A window appears in front of the guy, announcing the completion of the test and the opportunity to receive rewards for completing it. Then the hero takes out from his jacket pocket the little shoes that he was going to give to Sophia, so that she wouldn't have to run around barefoot. But, unfortunately, he won't have this opportunity again. Meanwhile, system windows appeared one after another, showing items received for quests and improved hero characteristics. Just as Jake was enjoying his rewards and thought he was going to return to the real world, the window started to show interference as he was returning and he was transported to an unknown space. Meanwhile, in the classroom to which the students were supposed to return, only a couple of people remained alive. The school principal asked Bart, who was sitting in the classroom, if he was sure that the nightmare mode had started when he left. Bart replied that he was sure, otherwise he would not have been able to leave the secret world beforehand, and pointed out that the last time he saw Lilith, Harry, and Jake. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the director notices that out of 3 students, only 1 remains alive. Unexpectedly for everyone, Bart assumes that the surviving student will be the protagonist, to which he is told that since the class president died, then lazy Jake had no chance of survival at all. The principal interrupts their argument, saying that it is not so important who the winner is. What is more important is that he will be the pride of their school. The others wonder why the survivor hasn't returned yet if the test is already over. Jake, meanwhile, is transported to the heavenly prison that so often appeared to him in his dreams. A huge steel fence slowly rises higher and higher, letting the hero through to the main gate of the tower. Entering inside, the guy is surprised that this time he was able to go further, because many times he had to stay outside the tower. In the center of the tower, by the old spiral staircase, Jake is greeted by a system window calling him slave. Suddenly, a bright light surrounds the hero, enveloping his consciousness. Images of different corners of the tower appear in his mind, each of which he can fully experience as if he were already there. Jake then realizes that the tower is a real place, and feels that everything in the prison is now under his control. However, when a spider hanging on a long string of web comes level with the hero's head, he is indignant that this place is too ugly. Suddenly, a previously unknown aura hovering in the depths of the tower distracts the guy. Deciding to check where it comes from, he goes floor after floor, passing the depressing paraphernalia of a prison. Finally, he meets the shackled girl who was the source of energy. Just as Jake was rejoicing at having met another beauty on his way, he noticed that this girl had no head, which greatly depressed him. The system introduces the hero to a headless dark spirit named Margaret, whose affection level is 0, and also gives instructions that raising the affection level will allow the hero to better control her and subsequently take possession of some of her abilities. Stunned by the power of the aura, Jake wonders what level of secret this is, because its pressure feels almost like that of the head nurse. With a cocky grimace, the guy tries to ingratiate himself with the spirit by offering various foods, but this only increases the pressure. One by one, Jake went through the options to somehow get along with the spirit, but nothing that came to mind worked. Then it occurs to the hero to suggest that they take a walk away from the tower's oppressive walls, which relieves the tension, and Margaret, shuddering for a moment, seems to come to life. Shrouded in an ominous aura, the mystery began to slowly approach the guy. After reading the system prompt, Jake extended his hand to the girl, promising that if she came with him, he would help her find her head. Despite the hero's friendliness, Margaret makes it clear to him that she is not inclined to obey any particular person. Wanting to teach the unexpected guest a lesson, the spirit created many magical chains with which she wanted to bind the hero in an instant. Unexpectedly for her, the links of the chains began to break, evaporating one after another. Jake makes it clear to her that she is in no position to try to outsmart him, after which a contract scroll materializes in his hand. Remaining calm and confident, Jake reveals the contract to Margaret, offering to become his subordinate spirit. Here the hero's expression became cold, his eyes empty, and he says that if she refuses, death awaits her. Out of desperation, Margaret picks up the contract scroll from the floor to find out under what conditions he intends to subjugate her. The secret was not delighted with what she had read, and every point of the contract she read irritated her, while Jake, with a smug look, waited for her decision. Margaret read one of the lines, puzzled by how the guy had dared to write such a thing, but the confident grin never left the hero's face. Tina found each of the clauses so humiliating that she would have gladly accepted death rather than submit to a man under such conditions, and was about to break the contract, but noticed that one of the clauses was Jake's promise as a master to help return her head. Meanwhile, in the classroom, the school administration, perplexed by the situation, is having a conversation. Their conversation is interrupted when the protagonist returns to the real world. This unexpected outcome shocks everyone in the class except one person. Bart had no doubt in his friend's abilities, and so he enthusiastically called out to the hero, while the other classmates racked their brains, trying to understand how such a lazy person like Jake could complete the test, especially in nightmare mode. Suddenly, the teachers rushed to the hero, asking him if everything was okay with him. The director handed him a mug of hot tea so that he could properly relax. Just as the boy wanted to say something, the director immediately interrupted him, saying that he didn't need to be shy, because he was now the school's ray of hope. However, Jake stopped him, saying that he was not at all embarrassed, because he was more worried about the mug of hot tea burning his hand. The director immediately threw the mug away, ordering the teacher to take it away, as it could harm the boy's hands, to which she exclaimed that the director himself was to blame, as he had not cooled the tea beforehand. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out to Jake from the doorway. The famous and beloved Eva wanted to talk to the guy about something. At first, both the director and the hero froze in bewilderment, because it was unknown why the most popular girl in school needed him. But then their bewilderment turned to satisfied grimaces as soon as Jake thought that he had activated the protagonist's aura. And suddenly this beauty fell in love with him. The young man and the girl went out into the corridor, where Eva congratulated him on passing the test, and especially the nightmarish regime. Having decided not to tell anyone about the contract with Margaret for now, the guy denies it, saying that he cannot compare with Eva, because she signed a contract with a secret. But suddenly for Jake, the girl hinted that she knew about his contract with the headless spirit. Her words were so unexpected that the guy was embarrassed for a moment, and an awkward silence followed. Trying to get out of an embarrassing situation, the hero mentally asks Margaret how Eva knows about her existence. Surprised by such a question, Margaret explains that after concluding contracts, subordinate spirits can interact with each other. Then Jake was indignant, why she did not tell him about such an important thing earlier. Unexpectedly, Eva asked how many items his spirit had required to complete the contract. When the hero asked her about it again, she wanted to know if he killed Harry and Lilith in the secret world, and told him not to pretend that he had no idea what she was talking about, because she had to sacrifice 13 people to the spirit. After listening to Eva, Jake asks his secret if she knows what they are talking about, and she explains that when people enter into contracts, they are usually at a huge disadvantage, and that equal contracts are almost never possible. Margaret is jealous that she received nothing in return, and draws the hero's attention to how well she treats him. Eva says that she and Jake are most likely the only students who have signed contracts with secrets, so it would be a good idea for them to get to know each other better, so she asked Jake for his contact information. A couple of hours later, a crowd of adults gathered outside the school, waiting for their children to return from the secret world. Seized with horror and filled with hope, the people listened to the long list of names of the students who died in the test, hoping not to hear the name of their child among them. Jake had just left school when Margaret immediately said with apprehension that he should expect trouble from Eva, and suggested killing her. In response to this, the hero became very embarrassed, explaining that in the real world they cannot just kill whoever they want, and was surprised that such a beautiful girl constantly wants to kill. Their short conversation was interrupted by the mournful cry of one of the women. When the boy turned towards the crying, he saw Harry's mother, who was overcome with grief and quietly sobbing over her loss. Turning around again, the hero saw Lilith's enraged, but also grief-stricken father, who frantically demanded that his daughter be returned to him. Margaret asked Jake if he sympathized with these people, to which he replied that he did, because this was the real world, real life. But the hero also noted that the school, although it forced participation in the test, did not take away the participants' right to leave the secret world immediately after it began. So if someone really did not want to participate, they would immediately exit into the real world. The guy's thoughts were interrupted by the loud call of a voice he knew well. It was his sister, who had already tried several times to shout to the pensive hero. She approached Jake, gently ruffled his hair, and told him that his favorite dish was waiting for him at home. On the way home, the sister told the hero how worried she was about him, especially after the news that many people from his class died during the test, and asked him not to return to the secret world anymore, because with his grades, the hero would not have entered any university anyway, and she had already found him a suitable job. Hearing her sister's words, Margaret became very angry. Completely forgetting what she had talked to Jake about a minute ago, she said that she would crush his sister right after he helped her find her head. Having calmed the enraged spirit, the hero told his sister that he had in fact passed the test and even the nightmare regime. His sister stared at him silently at first, then said that she knew his true abilities and he would not be able to complete this test, and then dragged him home. The next day, sittings in the assembly hall, the hero firmly decided that the job his sister had chosen was clearly not for him, and he would not waste time on it in this life. Thinking back on his academic performance, Jake hoped to receive universal praise for it, although the administration usually does not disclose the grades of its students. Then a girl came up to him and asked if she could sit next to him. It was Eva, who also came to the graduation ceremony. Jake was surprised by her appearance and asked why she didn't sit with her class, but decided to approach him. He was interrupted by a worried Margaret, who told the hero that something was happening in the hall. A drop of blood fell from the ceiling directly onto the microphone in front of the principal, who was giving an inspiring speech to the graduates. It was blood that flowed from the hands of the secrets, entangled in thorny chains and hanging right above the stage. The graduates began to panic, screaming that secrets had broken through into the real world, and began searching for their teachers. Suddenly, a man with multiple scars on his face entered the hall and was extremely disappointed with the graduates' reaction. That man was Bernard, and he tells the graduates that the country has no future if the younger generation is like them. But there was one person he noticed, and who confirmed the words of his superiors. Jake was surprising because despite the incident, he behaved calmly and looked serene. From the outside, this seemed strange to the young man, because the man was looking at him with a strange smile on his face. Eva was surprised that the man from the Bureau of Oddities personally arrived here, to which the guy asks her how secret they are. The girl says that in previous years, universities deliberately created a lot of hype around admissions to test the reaction of new students and find out whether their grades were accurate. The Bureau of Oddities is a government agency, and this is the first time its members have appeared at a graduation ceremony. Jake had a bad feeling and thought that something big was about to happen. Suddenly, Margaret appears and says that she can deal with that man if he scared him. The guy gets angry and replies that he is not scared at all. She says that she can easily cope, since the spirit inside the man, according to their estimates, is D-class, and he will be like a brother to her. Jake replies that attacking him suddenly would be against the law and he didn't want to go to jail, to which Margaret says that it's no big deal since she's done it before. Bernard tells everyone to be quiet because he is about to speak, and he does not want to hear any sound from this moment on. On September 23rd, 121, according to the Secret World calendar, 3,214 residents of one of the micro-districts in the mountainous region disappeared in an instant, and the skin of the dead was made into clothes and hung on the balconies. It was a terrible sight that no one would wish to see. On March 13th, 122 of the Hidden World calendar, a clown dismembered people at a famous amusement park in Shanghai, resulting in the deaths of 144 people, including 86 minors. People could enter the secret world, but creatures from the secret world could also enter the world of people. Everyone listened silently, and horror and fear were frozen on everyone's faces. Many people entered the secret world and immediately came out. Some somehow completed the test, and everyone should understand this perfectly well. Bernard says that you don't need to wait for the end of the world to understand this, and it is very important to fully pass the test in the secret world. The purpose of the man's visit was to conduct another secret test. It was not forced, and those who did not want to participate could leave the place immediately. But Bernard also made a promise on behalf of the Bureau of Oddities that those who remained and completed this task would be enrolled in Tsinghua University in the capital. And those who distinguish themselves can even become reserve members of the Bureau of Oddities. And this was a very good opportunity. Some students, having recovered from the shock of the information they had received, began to evaluate and think about the new proposal they had received. There will also be other rewards in addition to everything that they will learn about later. But for now, he gives everyone the opportunity to think and choose. The students began to leave, saying that it was none of their business and they didn't care about these secrets, since the Bureau of Oddities should take care of it. Some of the guys were angry that the test was starting again a few days later. Everyone just wanted to finish the ceremony. Jake asks Margaret to let him go as he didn't want to participate, as it had only been a few days since the last challenge and he hadn't had enough fun yet, and she wanted him to go into the secret world again. She tells him that he promised her to find the head, and he will not be able to find it if he does not return to the secret world. She added that she will not tolerate deception. The young man indignantly shouts that in that case she also cannot control his body, since he is her master. Margaret says that he was the first to agree to find her head, and signing the contract doesn't count. The guy replies that whether she believes it or not, but when they return to the heavenly prison, he will finish her off. She replies that if the contract spirit dies, then the contractor will at best go crazy, or will have involuntary bowel movements, or will become paralyzed, and this could lead to his death. She asks if he knew about this. The guy was covered in sweat and was angry that the textbooks did not mention all these nuances and that those who wrote these textbooks were incompetent. Bernard was happy and proud of the remaining students. Each of them was to receive a prize of 200,000 yuan as a reward, and the school director would soon have to give the money to their guardians. Well, they had to get it down to business, and they entered the secret world. Jake really didn't want to and was already crying from the impossibility of stepping back, but the countdown had already begun and they sincerely wished them to successfully complete the test. So, the first piece of advice was to improve relations with the teacher and students. Since they entered later, the second piece of advice was that at school you need to listen to the teacher, otherwise he will be very angry. Since the new students had been standing at the entrance for a long time, the teacher invited them to enter the classroom. The assignment was to attend the final exam at the Broken Bone High School in 5 days. They were given 5 days to complete the assignment and could not refuse to participate in the first 2 days. The teacher told the newcomers to come in and introduce themselves to everyone. The black-haired one was supposed to be the first. The guy was surprised that he was the first. The young man broke out in a sweat and looked at the already seated students, who looked back at him with coldness in their eyes. Daniel says he is 18 years old and enjoys singing, rapping, and playing basketball, and he usually enjoys eating chicken. He turns to the teacher and adds that he has finished the performance, to which the teacher says that since he has finished, he can sit down. Jake didn't believe it would be that easy, as it couldn't end like this, and there had to be some kind of trap. As he thought, the teacher laughed and hit the guy on the head while he was not looking, and it exploded. Jake got blood on him, and he was confused. Even though he knew it could happen, he didn't understand why everyone loved to hit people on the head. The young man turns to Margaret and tells her that it is time to show her power, and that she must cut this thing. But she replies that she has spent all her strength on controlling his body, and now she needs to rest and recover. The guy was angry because he understood that she was doing it on purpose. Suddenly, a clue emerged about how the teacher felt. He had a boring life, a repetitive job, and he hoped that among the newcomers there would be at least one funny person. Luckily, he was able to do this. He introduced himself as Jake, an 18-year-old who, since childhood, has been able to breathe on his own, eat 3 times a day, talk, and use a smartphone perfectly. He was from an ordinary family. His dad drives a Ferrari, his mom drives a Bentley, and he was just joking, but none of this matters, because his family calls him Jake, but for his new classmates he is cool. So he took off his jacket and shouted out his name. The guys were confused, but one person picked up and hesitantly said, "Jake is cool." Then he took off his shirt and repeated his nickname. In response, more people have already picked up on it and said that he is cool. Finally, he took off his t-shirt and repeated it again. This time the whole class stood up and shouted that Jake was cool. The newcomers who came with Jake looked at this spectacle with bewilderment. The guy decided to go even further and started taking off his pants, telling everyone to scream and not stop. But the surprised teacher stopped him, saying that this was enough, and although he wanted to continue watching, he could not allow the director to reprimand him for this, and the boy could get dressed and sit down in his seat. The boy walked to his seat and thought he was very smart. The teacher asked the children to be quieter and return to their seats. And now the girl could also introduce herself. Ava suddenly slammed her head on the teacher's desk with an unperturbed look. She introduced herself and said that she turned 6 this year. Her best success was at the age of 3, when she punched a nursing home and kicked a kindergarten. She added that it would be better for no one to get along with her. Otherwise, they would die. The teacher stood up and laughed, saying that it was not a bad introduction, and she could take her seat, after which he asked Daniel to introduce himself again. The guy was very nervous and didn't know what to answer, but in the end he said that he liked eating garbage. Once the newcomers had finished introducing themselves, the lesson began, and since the previous English teacher's tongue had been cut off by the principal and she needed a rest, he would teach the lesson today. The man hoped that everyone would listen to him attentively, and that if he studied poorly, the school board would punish him. He asks everyone to try harder and open their textbooks. Jake, sitting in his seat, thought that this secret world was too modern, since they knew everything, and he wondered if they had TikTok too. After the lesson, it was time for lunch, and a lot of people gathered in the school cafeteria. They also communicated with each other, shared food and ate food that was rather strange for humans, but not for monsters. Daniel cried because he lost the chance to be resurrected from the very beginning. Adrian also said that it was not so quiet in their class. Jake also complained that if you couldn't answer, they would immediately break your hands, and that these teaching methods were strange. Anthony suggested that there were 5 of them in this scenario, so he suggested exchanging information just in case. Adrian agrees and says that this is the only way they can achieve maximum efficiency. Eva says that there is no need for this yet, since there is not much information, but when they are assigned to the dorm, if they end up in the same room, they will be able to take care of each other. Jake asks her in surprise if boys and girls live together at this school. That's how it all happened. After some time, they were assigned to dormitories. The guy walked into his assigned room and saw a pink bed with women's things scattered on it. He was very glad that at least in the secret world he was able to fulfill his dream of living with a sweet girl. Suddenly he felt someone's presence behind him. Turning around, he saw a guy who greeted him and began to tell him the rules of the hostel. Firstly, after 9 o'clock in the evening, the lights in the dormitory will be turned off, and therefore it is not allowed to walk around after this time. Secondly, it is strictly forbidden to enter the old dormitory. There is very little space in the building, so they had to mix girls and boys. After the weird guy left, Jake saw a note on the nightstand. In it, the neighbor greeted him, said that there were a lot of snacks for him in the nightstand, and if he wanted to see her, then he should find her. Margaret suddenly appears and says that it was a lowly F level and asks the guy if he wants to play with her. Jake says that she didn't have the strength and how is she going to deal with the spirit then? She replies that she lied to him earlier because he will not grow if she solves all his problems. But the young man did not pay attention to her, but was looking for the box that was written about in the note. Because of this, Margaret was upset, since he was ignoring him. When he opened the box, the boy was very surprised by the amount of goodies, since he could not eat in the canteen. Finally, the guy replied that he couldn't force dear Margaret to deal with someone of F's level. Each level up gave an additional 5 points of arcane power, and with the bonuses, Jake had 105 points of arcane power. Opening the funeral urn in his inventory, he received a model magazine, but he didn't need it since his neighbor was a girl. Margaret invites the guy to go out for a walk, since he also received an official pass that allowed him to leave and enter the dorm whenever he wanted. The guy asks what's good about leaving the room, to which she replies that they need to look for her beautiful head. Jake says that she was rude to him recently, but the spirit retorts that they have no need to argue and need to go. The young man tells her to calm down, and he will definitely fulfill his promise. But first, he needs to complete the main task. She doesn't understand and asks what the main thing is that he needs to complete. When night fell, the boy left his room, because if the commandant found out, he would be in trouble. Suddenly, Eva appeared behind him and asked why he wasn't sleeping either. The guy didn't expect such a turn of events. Jake says that she is not sleeping either, and that he may have scared everyone here with his scream. The guy noticed that the girl left the commandant's room and asked what she was doing there. Eva says that she dealt with the commandant and he won't wake up until the morning. She suggests the guy go to the old dorm and see what's there. Margaret tells the boy that the girl has some kind of goal and he should stay away from her. Jake replies that this is reasonable and agrees to go with Eva. The girl tells him to follow her, as she has found out the location of the old dormitory. Margaret is angry that the guy didn't listen to her. She says that he will get into trouble. Jake thought that since he was here because of Margaret, he couldn't leave empty-handed and the key to the solution was hidden right there. It's just that if there were problems with the old dormitory building, then the scale of the mystery inside is unimaginable. The building was in poor condition, dirty with broken windows and mice running everywhere. The boy and girl entered without hesitation and looked around. Eva says that the building has 6 floors and suggests that they split up. Jake replies that in horror movies, when the team gets separated, something always happens. The girl sighed and agreed. Then they decided to go together and look after each other. The guy felt that Eva had not approached him without reason, and that she had impure intentions. They entered the offices and examined the cabinets and books scattered around the room. Jake decided that instead of keeping his distance from Eva, it would be better to watch her and see what she was up to. The girl says that there is nothing on the first floor and suggests going upstairs. They had been inspecting every floor for a long time, but found nothing. Jake was already tired of looking around the building, but luckily they were climbing to the top, 6th floor. As soon as they got up, Margaret appeared and warned the guy, saying that she felt that something was wrong on this floor. The young man noticed it too, as it was suspiciously clean here. There was not a single clue in the dilapidated building, as if the key to the mystery had been deliberately hidden. Suddenly they hear that the door is locked and cannot be opened. It was strange because this room was the last one, and there was nothing else to check. Suddenly a girl with long hair and a smile on her face appears. The lights turned red and all the doors on the floor started breaking down from the inside. Eva immediately realized that this was a trap, and they needed to escape from here. The guy tried to stop the girl, but she quickly ran away, and Margaret appeared, who was pleased that she was right. Suddenly the door opened, and spirits in the form of hands appeared from there. They crawled out of all the rooms and filled the entire floor. Margaret says that she will briefly go into physical form and hold on to these secrets, and he must quickly run away. Jake understood that the secrets here had not been revealed from the very beginning, which meant they did not want to set a trap. But as soon as they approached the last room, they appeared, preventing them from entering. The secrets had piled up in a huge heap, and Margaret was ready to fight them off. But the guy grabbed her by the hand and broke into the closed room. Because what had been started could not be stopped, and he did not want his efforts to be wasted. Margaret got angry at the guy because she wanted to protect him, and he didn't appreciate it. She didn't want to die with him and told him to look for a way out, but the guy remained silent. Because in front of him he saw a girl in a blue dress and loose hair who was looking out the window. The girl turned around with tears in her eyes. The couple that suddenly appeared heard her monologue about the loss of her lover and about their love, capable of conquering mountains and seas. Jake didn't understand whether she was a ghost or an NPC, but her appearance was very different from ordinary girls. Margaret was in a hurry to finish it as soon as possible, since the number of secrets behind the door was tens of thousands, and if they got here they would drown them. The guy asked her to be patient a little longer. He quickly grabbed the girl by the hand and asked his sister to come with him. Suddenly the girl turned into butterflies, which flew out the window into the sky. The guy immediately received a hint and a new task. He was very surprised that she did not leave anything behind, but simply gave the task. Secrets were already creeping through the door, and it was becoming difficult to contain them. Margaret ran to the window, grabbing the guy by the collar, saying that there was no time left. She tells the guy to hold on to her tightly. The guy, in fear, reminds the secret that if you jump from such a height, you can break. By this time, Eva had managed to run out of the building and turned around at the screams she suddenly heard. She turned around to see Jake plummeting to the ground, secrets flying after him. The guy was very scared and screamed at the top of his lungs. A moment later, Margaret landed safely without any injuries. Tina shook her hands and said that they had finished the descent the guy had thrown up. Jake says it was much more exciting than the amusement rides. Eva walked up to him and handed him a handkerchief, asking if the guy was okay. She asks why he didn't run away with her, to which he replies that he got scared and ran to the restroom. The girl realizes that this was a stupid excuse and asks the guy if he found the clue, and whether he unlocked the task. Jake is surprised that he was quickly found out. Under pressure from the girl, the guy says that he received an assignment, and now they need to go back and sleep. He began to leave discontentedly, feeling like a loser, and the girl watched him go. Suddenly, he tells him in his back that he will buy the lead for $100,000. Jake says he's not that kind of person and everyone gets leads because of their abilities, and by using money, she insults him. Eva offers €200,000, but the guy replies that he will never give up the lead. To be continued.